Hello, all you folks out there in YouTube land. Thrash Pondo here, and this book probably looks familiar to you. And I'll tell you why it should look familiar to you. Because this is the book that I tried not once, but twice to do a wretched recap of, and failed miserably on both occasions. Don't know what happened here, but I'm keeping an eye out on the red button that shows that my camera is actually still filming, and hopefully it shan't happen a third time. Three's the charm. Although we all know the backstory behind the TV series Charmed. God, they were cursed. But anyway, without further ado, as in before my camera kicks out, I'm going to once again try to do my wretched recap of the Boris Karloff Tales of Mystery. And I won't be using that horrible Boris Karloff accent throughout. But anyway, here, I switch hands just to open up. And look, here's some you don't see every day. Advertisements for patches. Did any of us have decent clothing back in the 70s? I know I did. Mama Thrash kept me very, very well outfitted. Sadly, so I never got any of these patches. Didn't need them. But anyway, here we go to story one, and this is a weird story. This guy is sort of a basket case. He is like obsessed with the occult, and he finds this magic book and decides that he's going to try to summon demons on his "Are you sitting down?" wedding night. Now, dude, time and or place, and if there's one time in your life you should have better things to do then try to summon demons. It's on your wedding night. But anyway, he gets the book and he's fiddling with it, and he won't put it down, and he's in the basement doing all kinds of weird things. And she's like, honey, don't you want to call it a night and we could like revisit this matter tomorrow? And he's like, oh no, just a couple more hours because lo and behold, he summons a demon, and she's like, wow, that calls for another advertisement. Yes, here we see again. Do you need money? Most of us do. I will not use my Miss Struthers voice, but it's one of those scams where you can make $100 just by selling things worth more than $100. Every time you sell a unit, you get $1. So if you sell 100 units, you get $100. Isn't math wonderful? That's why you stay in school, kids, and not try to get rich out of a comic book. But anyway, the demon kind of wakes them both up, and she makes him promise he won't do that again, and he does. And for some bizarre reason, she takes him at his word that he won't summon demons again. And well, guess what? He told a little white lie. He does try to summon demons. This time he summons up an apparition of a witch. And he thinks that if he asks enough questions, the witch will somehow grant her witch powers. And, well, it releases all these sort of um Lovecraftian things. And it's a little too much for him, and his heart gives out, and he dies, causing everything to go poof. And his wife, new wife, bride, gets up and says, huh, he's dead. An unforeseen side effect. Yeah, that's the problem, is that I keep needing to get married to men and have them summon my demons for me so I can stay in human form. She's actually the witch in question, just using a little apparition magic. And she goes, I'll have to remember that with my next husband. Yes, because she's going to have to repeat the process and have a next husband. And then we move on to, oh, these are always, it's all text, and I don't have to, it's about some like the origins of Frankenstein's monster. Mary Shelley did it. But here we come to a new story. It's Caverns Jaws, and they make the graphic for Jaws look different. This the movie hadn't come out yet, but I'm sure the Peter Benchley book was already readily available and on a bestseller list. So they kept trying to work Jaws in the title with a lot of these scary things trying to ride the coattails. Very Roger Corman-esque. And here we see a fugitive, not Mr. Jansen, but another fugitive of the law, and he's trying to escape, and he's exhausted. And he finds, lo and behold, he finds a mysterious cave, and should be a convincing place to look because no one would think to look for someone in a cave. And in the cave, he finds bicycles. No, no, not bicycles. He sells very cheap bikes being sold by Sears. I think I got one of these when I was a kid. One thing I did love about some of these bikes, I love these banana seats. They are so much more comfortable than any of the other seats bikes had at the time, or still. When I got my first 10 speed, I was actually horribly let down because they did not have a banana seat option. But anyway, he's scrubbing around the cave and he decides that other people are hiding there as well because he finds this big cauldron of what looks like stew. Hmm. If I found a big cauldron of something which resembled stew in a cavern, the last thing I would do is exactly what this clown does. I think I'll eat some of it. And now he becomes mysteriously sleepy, so he decides, even though he knows this cave is occupied and hasn't met his co spelunkers as of yet, he decides he's going to take a nap. What could possibly go wrong in a Boris Karloff comic book? Long story short, it was all a sort of Goldilocks and the Three Bears scenario. He wakes up to hear screaming. He thinks it's more fugitive clowns. He thinks he can enter some kind of alliance, and lo and behold, it's these three monstrosity things. Uh, One kind of looks like a cross between a Ninja Turtle and Swamp Thing, but that's another story. But anyway, his negotiations do not go particularly well because it says in the end that this is the last time anyone ever seen him. And then we go on to another advertisement for more patches. Patches, I'm depending on you, son. And then, a little even cooler than patches, we see these are pins, like lapel pins. 70s love pins. 80s was crazy about pins. You used to deck your like leather jacket, or not leather, I'm sorry, Levi's jacket, a denim jacket. You don't want to put holes in leather, that's ill. But Levi's jackets, you would put these, uh, maybe not Snoopy, although Snoopy is quite cool, but you would put pins all over it. Some of those like big round pins that would say things like "My karma ate over my dogma" or "It's after five somewhere." And moving on, we see, oh, lo and behold, New England local boy represented. We see a New England oil slick. There's something that isn't too far fetched. Yes, somewhere in New England, an oil tanker ruptures and spills out all kinds of oil. Take that ecosystem. Only this is a weird type of oil slick, because again, in the context of the story, the New Englanders are always getting oil slicks. They're like blizzards to those people. Little secret of a New Englander. Fortunately, it was a comparatively rare issue, but this one is even rarer. This oil slick sort of defies all explanation. It kind of goes over the barriers and seems to have a mind of its own. More about that later. But anyway, it's a trash in this, and it's trash in that, and it's going over the barriers. And lo and behold, it's some type of oil slick monster. I wonder if Stephen King read this installment, or if the writer of the story read No Fishing. But either way, we go on to some very cool Warner Brothers iron on patches. Remember those iron on patches I told you about before, where you'd take like a plain old T-shirt and iron a patch on it and make it into a Warner Brothers shirt? Cool squared, cool squared. Anyway, moving forward, so the oil slick monster is attacking the New England island, and the people are like running away, and it seems to actually be getting more and more into the interior. Oh, by the way, that looks like no New England island I've ever seen in my entire. Look at those rock formations. New England doesn't have rock formations. It's not Vasquez rocks. It's New England. It was made by a receding glacier. But either way, they're kind of cool. So anyway, they decide to set the oil slick on fire because, as any schoolboy will tell you, oil burns. And anyway, that seems to do the trick. They have to lure it back out into the ocean and get it to sink to the bottom because, of course, fire becomes increasingly worse when you get water on it. Well, they always say never put water on a grease fire, and now we see why. You'll kill the demon which lives inside of it. Now we come to a kind of a surreal story. It's sort of a cross between uh, uh, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and one of the weaker stories in the Tales of the Crypt episode. We have this guy here, and he's suffering from some sort of rare tropical disease, and he gets a dermatologist to come out and see him. But before the dermatologist can come out and see him, he leaves his home, and every person he tries to ask questions or get directions from goes, ah, ah, closed, and runs away and he goes, everyone in this town must be crazy. And we move on, and he keeps asking people for help, and they keep flipping out on him. And finally, we get an ad for cars. These are sort of stock car, kids' toy stock cars. These are really slick, actually, because they knew kids love to crash their stock cars. They designed these to look all banged up, and when they crashed into them, parts would fly off. Kind of sick if you think about it. But anyway, always play to your audience. Now, the funny thing about this is kids in my neighborhood couldn't afford stock cars that actually looked like they were broken. You know what we had to do? We would take a hammer and actually break our cars and say it was in an accident. Mom was not happy, but she seldom was. But anyway, moving forward, so this guy's going around and finally he says, "Gee, why is everyone so crazy?" Well, it's because he's turned into a monster. Now, here's where the "Hello, my baby, hello, my honey" Warner Brothers frog thing comes in. He doesn't stay in this form, and when he meets up with his friends, he's now back in human form. And we find out he has some rare ailment where fog makes him turn into a monster. That makes absolutely no sense to me. But it does, and it causes his friends to think he's crazy because, well, why are you saying everyone thinks you're a monster? You're not a monster. Well, are we not all monsters in here? Well, some of us are, I'm sure. And we have that infamous toy soldiers, the 100 toy soldiers for a buck 25. That's only 1.25 pennies per soldier. And again, one of those things where, if you want to make money really quick, you sell these items and we'll pay you in merchandise. But anyway, again, I think the advertisements in this are a little more interesting than some of the comics. But Gala there, and oh, here we go again. We see a second attempt. They put the advertisement on both sides. So like, let me mull that over. And you got me. You got me with this second attempt. But anyway, speaking of second attempts, this is actually the third attempt. Hopefully, it actually played. Hopefully, it posts. Hopefully, you can see it this time. But anyway, until next time, all of you be good, be safe, be careful, and of course, peace.